Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Friday, the 31st of March. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barrie. How are we doing, Joshua?
Yeah, good, Derek. We thought we were going to be joined a full complement today, but we will have to wait until next week. So that's why we're late.
Yeah. I'm not taking the blame for that one. But listen, it's good to have you back on and talk all things Rangers. Cannot wait for tomorrow. The domestic action returns. Rangers taking on Dundee United at Ibrox, and we'll get our teeth stuck into what we expect the lineup to be and all sorts a little later on. Before we do that, folks, you know the drill by now. A little bit of housekeeping. You can see the ticker below if you want to subscribe to the website. Just £2.99 per month. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. Loads of content on there. This morning there's a great piece from Martin Ramsey on that historic Scottish Cup semi-final win against Celtic on this day back in 1992. If you remember, it's the one when David Robertson gets sent off after 5 minutes for a slightly mistimed challenge on Joe Miller. And Rangers just galvanised themselves and went on and won that. And it really is a fantastic read. Piece on there as well from yesterday's newsletter from me. If you've not signed up to that yet, folks, I'd urge you to do so. We're giving away tickets, I believe, for the St Mirren game, is it? I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, St Mirren game. Yeah, four. I think it's hospitality tickets as well. All you need to do is sign up to the newsletter, which you'll see on all our socials, but completely free, and you get a free piece. If you sign up for the newsletter every day, you get a free piece, and then you also get kind of a selection of other pieces as well. So yes, I always enjoy it, Derek, even if I am biased.
Yeah, absolutely. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/email bulletins, and you can sign up to that. It takes 2 seconds. And a quick word for our podcast sponsors as well. Seneca Hair Restoration, the #1 hair corporation group in Europe, no less. If you're looking to restore some lost self-confidence, then head over to these guys. And as ever, I've put the links to their website and their social media channels in the description. Joshua, you don't need to go to these guys, but you've got a nice little trim there you're sporting, which is lovely.
It got to a stage, Derek, where I was going out, and my better half started to insinuate that she didn't like it, so I was left with no choice. But hope you like it, and don't need to like it yet though.
Thomas McCrimmon says Josh looks like Joe Miller. I'm not entirely sure that I don't see the resemblance myself, but and there you go. Right, let's talk Rangers, Joshua, because of course, big game coming up tomorrow. Brilliant to see Rangers back in action. There is a press conference today, folks. Michael Beale will be speaking ahead of that game, and a player. There's also the B team press conference today, because of course Rangers taking on Celtic on the Sunday. But I think that the big talking point will be injuries, Joshua, and who's going to be fit. Namely, Nico Raskin. Mark Wiper gets in touch. Morning, guys. Let's cut to the chase. Is Raskin fit? Well, we'll soon find out if he's fit. That is the one concern for me, Joshua. I know the manager said prior to the Motherwell game, it sounded like it was a slight issue, not nothing to worry about. But when he misses that game, and he misses the internationals with the Belgium under-21 team, then you start to worry somewhat. So I think that's a big one. You're hoping that he's going to be fit and available, don't you?
Yeah, of course. I think you'd be more confident of surviving a home game without him, as opposed to obviously the Old Firm, which is a week after. But he started so impressively, Derek. I think alongside Cantwell. If everyone's fit, you'd hope it's probably a Raskin, Jack, and Cantwell midfield. Obviously, we can get into the kind of Tillman and Cantwell conversation, how you accommodate them both, if you play them both in midfield, if you push one further forwards. Raskin, I think, so far has maybe only started 4 or 5 games, Derek, but I think on that left side of midfield, you see how he goes box to box, you see how he energises the team. I think it looked a totally different proposition with him on one side of the midfield and Cantwell on the other, not least because of what they bring on the ball, but also off it. So yeah, fingers crossed that he's fit. You've obviously got Ridvan, who's had another kind of 2 weeks on his return from injury, having started the game against Motherwell as well. John Suter. So the squad, is getting to a point where the manager will have to leave people out of the squad, which is, I guess, a good problem to have, a good position to be in compared to where he was when he took the job. But yeah, I think that'll be the big news coming out of today's press conference, which is early afternoon, whether Raskin is ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, what do you make of this point by Stuart? Need Raskin to get 90 minutes this week before the semi next week. Do you think Michael Beale will have one eye on that trip to Parkhead in a week's time on Saturday with the team that he selects tomorrow, Joshua? There's a few interesting selection dilemmas for me. One is up top. One is left back, and then obviously the midfield. You're contemplating that if Raskin is fit, if he is fit, then he plays for me. Is that the dilemmas for you? Do you reckon those positions?
Well, I think largely have to play the team that's going to play in those two Old Firm games, and I think, and we can come on to discuss this more in the week leading up to next week's games. But I think if he can take anything away from these games over the last year, going back to the semi-final last year at Hampden, it's that Rangers need to be aggressive in these games. I think if they sit off Celtic and they allow them to kind of get into their flow, whether that be if they're sitting, compact as they were under Beale or the approach under Van Bronckhorst, which failed miserably 2 times away at Parkhead. I think when they've looked at their best in these games is when they are aggressive, when they sit really high at the park. In that draw at the start of the year, which they probably should have won. Michael Beale spoke before about meeting them at the halfway line, not taking a backward step. And I think that aggression has to be there. And I think that has to be reflected in the team lines as well, Derek. I'd hope going that the team would be probably a Raskin, Jack and Cantwell midfield next week, because I don't think they've shown, especially Cantwell, I think off the ball he's shown it to be a strength rather than a weakness. I know he's not a defensive player per se, but if you look at his defensive numbers, the intensity that he provides off the ball is really impressive. You've got to go and win the game, especially next week, because it's the league and it's the kind of last hope of any sort of title race. You've got to go and win the game. Again, parallels to the 1-1 draw last season when Seneca scored that goal and he went and hit the post late on. But you do have a dilemma up top because I'd be inclined to probably push Tillman up a line at home. We've seen him come on with Morelos at Parkhead. Sorry, not Parkhead, Fir Park. But then away from home, I think as we've discussed a lot, Derek Seneca has been so effective. 9 goal contributions in 8 games away from home. You've probably got 4 or 5 players for 3 positions. Will be a lot for Čolak tomorrow, or will this be another kind of sighting of Morelos after the 2 weeks international break? Because Čolak had a really good couple of games against Hibs and Kilmarnock, but that's obviously a wee while ago now, and Beale has to, I think, play that team, as I say, that's going to be the strongest going into the Old Firm. And I think the majority of people, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see in the comments, but maybe would still say Morelos. All very dependent on what happens tomorrow against Dundee United. I think that will be telling with the team going forward, but Sakala's generally played. Tillman and Cantwell seem to be battling it out for that position. But yeah, tomorrow I think will tell us a lot about the team for the kind of subsequent few weeks.
Yeah, let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. First of all, a nice bit of praise here from S. He says, Derek and Joshua, the 2 best Rangers reporters in the game. That's very kind of you to say so, buddy. Right, let's get to a few of the comments coming in here. Rob Cole says, if Raskin is fit, hold him for next weekend and play Jack, Cantwell and either Tillman or Lundstrom. And this was an interesting point from Mark. He says, do you think that Raskin's injury is related to an injury which kept him out for a time when he played in Belgium? He was out for near enough 3 months at about this time last season. But I'm sure it was an abductor strain or something like that.
We'll find out today. We'll find out today what the issue was. But yeah, it didn't seem to be something serious. Just to go back to that point on the midfield, I think if it was going to be Tillman and Cantwell in the same midfield, we'd have seen that already. Beale, to go back to that Ross County game at the start of February, Derek, when you played Tillman, Cantwell, I think it was Jack behind them, when Lundstrom came off with injury, Sakala, Morelos and Kent, and Beale's kind of noises after that were all about how it left the team a bit unbalanced and how he needs to pick a good team despite having all these good footballers. So I'd be surprised if that was the case, but I'd also be surprised. I don't think you really can leave Tillman on the bench because he's one of your best players. So then who plays in that front 3, who drops out of that front 3, because Sakala has started so regularly. Kent obviously is an absolute manager's favourite, and I can't see him not playing, and I can't see one of Morelos and Čolak not playing. So really interested to see what happens with that tomorrow. A few interesting points being raised that are coming in. An interesting one. But first of all, Davey Bremner gets in touch, says, morning troops, no feeling greatest today.
wee man no well, like hopefully a win tomorrow make me feel better, and a comprehensive win at that. Hopefully you're on the mend soon, Davey. Ross raises a good point here. I think we'll see a few selections based on international appearances. Can see Ridvan, Lundstrom and Tillman being in for Barisic, Jack and Sakala.
Good point.
Yeah, Sakala for me though, Joshua, I think you wrote a piece on him recently. He's been in great form for Rangers, albeit that away from home, he really has been an asset. And I can see him starting at Parkhead a week on Saturday. But I don't know, is Sakala suited to these games? He has sort of struggled sometimes when the teams play that low block.
Well, I think there's almost two different types of Sakala. He has been favoured by Beale, and I think generally, Derek, that goes back to Beale's preference of playing with two goal scorers in the team, so that when the ball is in the penalty box, you have two players that's their role. You know, I think if you think of the side, you have your two midfielders, your two kind of creators or attackers, whether that be Kent and Tillman or Kent and Cantwell, who have a bit more freedom and less kind of defensive responsibility, although I guess that varies with Cantwell, as we've been discussing. And then you have your two goal scorers, and that's been Sakala and Cholak or Sakala and Morelos. We've seen that take on different forms. At points, they've been in more of a front two on the last line. At points, we've seen Sakala out wide. Sakala's expected assists, I think we mentioned this earlier in the week, Derek, but it goes from something like 0.04 to 0.37 away from home. So away from home, you know, I've not got the stats in front of me, but will be one of the highest in the league, if not the highest. Really high total, and I think that all comes from the space he has to run in down the side of the defence. He's a directness that no one else probably has in that Rangers team. At home, I don't think he's always as effective, but what he does still give you, and you see this in the kind of Kilmarnock game just before the international break, is a goal threat, is the ability to be in the right place at the right time, and that goal scorer's knack that is so often kind of discussed in football. Would you lose much if you put Tillman in at home? I don't think so, especially with Sakala being away from being away with his country. Yeah, I'd like to see Tillman higher up the pitch. I think we've not really seen that at all, because under Gio he also played in midfield. We know he played higher up in his youth career. I think when Beale first came in, they really needed Tillman in that role, and it worked well. Beale spoke about Tillman reaching his full potential as a running number 8. I think he's demonstrated what he can do off the ball as well as on it. Still, I think maybe needs a couple of big game performances, but it's important to remember this is still his first kind of professional season. He's still 20 years old, not 21 until next summer. But I think the goalposts have changed slightly with Cantwell coming in by the fact that I think he suits that deeper role slightly better than playing higher up the pitch. Tillman maybe doesn't lose as much if he pushes higher up the pitch because of the qualities he has. It's a good problem to have with a player where he has so much to his game that you're trying to work out the best position for him. But it is something that Beale will have to work around, because generally when they have played, either of them have played that right centre kind of midfield role with a license to get forward a bit. And when Tillman's been injured, Cantwell's been in there. So yeah, maybe he will play in place of Sakala tomorrow just because of that international factor.
Yeah, just touching on Sakala, of course he was upset about some of the abuse heading his way when he was playing for Zambia, and the Zambian hero Kennedy Mweweni has asked him to ignore the abuse and instead answer his critics on the pitch. He says, I think one thing I'll say, not only to fashion but to all the young Chipolopolo players, is that when they fans say those things, don't go and respond to them. You know how passionate Zambians are about football. Don't go to social media to respond to critics. Answer them on the pitch. It's not worth it to be answering what's been said on social media. So let's hope he just answers. Well, he doesn't need to answer the critics at Rangers. I think we're all well versed in what passion Sakala brings, that rawness. But he's been producing numbers, and as long as he produces numbers tomorrow, then I'm sure the Rangers fans will be delighted with that. John Walker raises a good point, Joshua. He says that everyone talks about needing a number 9. What about a false 9 with the Beale wants to play? Could Tillman be that false 9, do you reckon?
Yeah, well, what I found interesting in a couple of home games, and we've spoke about it recently, is the way that he's played really with 2 up top on the last line, because I guess it's about stretching the opposition as well and not always playing in the busiest areas of the pitch. And I thought the Kilmarnock game was a really good example of that, because Rangers were able to kind of stretch their wing backs and with the height of Tavernier and Barisic, and then it kind of exploit those gaps down the side of the defence. They did that in a different way away from home against Hibs. But Beale did say when Tillman came off the bench against Motherwell, it's something we've been working on, him playing up top with Morelos. Yeah, I think we need to remember that he is, and he said this multiple times, he's managing the season. So while at 1 minute it might be Sakala and Cholak in there, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's Tillman and Morelos the next week, because I think what he has to do is he has to kind of go with the players that have momentum and put them in at different points. Because until he gets his way and his squad and the time and the training pitch in the summer, there's going to always be an element of short-termism about this season, and he's kind of said that openly. So I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, over the next month, Tillman is kind of Rangers player in the front three who's afforded a bit of licence. What you would say is Tillman actually doesn't shoot that much. He actually shoots averages fewer shots per game than Kent, and just really efficient in the areas he chooses to shoot from. He doesn't lash at the ball. If you think of that cross he played for Arfield for what I think was the third goal at Aberdeen, right back at the start of Beale's reign. If you think about where he gets the ball and how long he holds on to it, and just kind of waiting for the right moment, I think that kind of epitomises his play in the final third. He's efficient. He waits to shoot in good areas. Logic maybe tells you if he gets more opportunities, then more goals will follow. He's already got 8 from midfield, and again in those tight areas, I think he can play with his back to goal as well. So tomorrow will probably tell us a lot about that going forward. But I agree with you, Derek. I think away from home, especially at Parkhead, Sakala will play. I know he didn't have a good game in the cup final, but he has been Beale's man in these games away from home. We're obviously talking on the presumption that Kent stays in there regardless. That's what's happened so far. And then you have to see, is it going to be Morelos or is it going to be Cholak? I think Cholak is more probably dependent on playing it with a partner in this system. I don't think he's necessarily going to play as a central striker with his back to goal in the same way that Morelos did. When you've seen him play with Sakala either off the right side or the left side, that's worked well at points. So yeah, the short-termism factor, I wouldn't be surprised if it is even Morelos and Tillman up top tomorrow, just because the way that I think Beale's trying to manage the kind of side until the end of the season.
Yeah. A few points coming in, just about news that's in the papers and the websites today. Aldo says, what do you make of Moor's comments on McTominay? This is Craig Moore on Go Radio. Says that we'd love to see Rangers go for Scott McTominay in a loan deal. Obviously, that's the only way a deal would be possible, would be great. But he says that Man United would probably swallow a large part of the bill. It would make more sense, a loan scenario being in Scotland, and if it was Rangers domestically, Man United don't want to strengthen their competitors. And I think he's been linked with Newcastle, Scott McTominay, at the moment. He's not getting much of a look in at Man United. Listen, if wages weren't an issue and Rangers could bring him in on a season-long loan, then bring him up. I would love to see him at Ibrox. Another one I've seen reports yesterday that Brighton are prepared to let Billy Gilmour go out on loan next season, Joshua. Now, that's obviously it's a bit of a social media frenzy. Of course, he's always linked to Rangers. Seems to be every transfer window. He's another one I'd like to get your thoughts on, although there's a point here. The McTominay links are ridiculous as the Gilmour and Gunn links are. All of them are outside their financial capabilities. What do you make of it, McTominay and Billy Gilmour? Would you like to see them at Ibrox? Is that realistic?
I'd like to see Gilmour, but I think Beale will want players who are here for kind of 2 to 3 years, even if they could come in and have a really good season. I think the loan market will probably be used sparingly. You look at someone like Raskin or Cantwell, and I think one of the big differences about those signings compared to, you know, Ahmad or Ramsey is that you know they're here for the long term, or they've signed a long contract, and whether they're sold on or sign another, they are here and they're committed to being here. I think Gilmour is a really interesting kind of case study because he's obviously such a talented player. I don't think anyone would disagree with that, but just needs a move where he's going to play football. And now at whatever he is, maybe 22, but I'd be surprised if he comes up the road at this stage. I just don't think it. I don't think it would make sense necessarily for him or the club because of the emphasis that Beale's put on not kind of having short-term signings and obviously he's on a relatively long contract at Brighton. I think McTominay's just outside the probably the financial capabilities of any club in Scotland at the moment, and the age he's at, I think he'll probably want to stay in the Premier League. So yeah, I don't think they're the type of players that will be coming to Rangers in the summer. Could be wrong, of course, but I think it'll be a lack of loan players and more signings that are going to be here for the 2 to 3 years that Beale kind of signposted a lot when he was speaking about new arrivals in the January window.
Yeah, John Adams says, no more loan players, please. And that's tied in with Kev Armstrong's raised that point. We don't need loan players. We need players to give us good service and then flip for profit, like Bassey. Easier said than done, Joshua, isn't it? Getting players like that. But yeah, listen, I agree with Kev. I think loan players can play their part. There's no doubt about it. Rangers haven't had the best of success with regards to loans in recent years, but they can still play their part. But yeah, I sort of go along the lines of Kev. If you can bring them in and be full-time Rangers employees, then that's better than loaning another team's players. Just a quick word for Yvonne Creevy, gets in touch. Says, hi guys, I just wanted to say thank you for my tickets for the director's box tomorrow. Really looking forward to it. Yeah, you're very welcome, Yvonne. Well done on winning that. Of course, that was our offer that we had when you sign up to the Rangers Review Director's Box tickets to the match tomorrow. So hopefully you have a great day. I'm sure you will. And there's plenty of offers like that, folks, on the Rangers Review. So keep your eyes peeled to the website, and also, as we mentioned earlier on, to the newsletter giveaways that we have quite regularly as well. Interesting that some of the points being raised here with regards to transfers. And the Angus Gunn one, Joshua, I think it's clear Rangers need to bring in a goalkeeper in the summer. Alan McGregor, of course, will make his 500th Rangers appearance at the weekend, which is quite incredible. But Rangers need another goalie. You watched Angus Gunn, of course, playing for Scotland recently. I've got to say, I would have no qualms about Rangers targeting a goalie of that ilk. There's a point raised. I'm just trying to find it now. Ross Armour says, if we can afford Cantwell, we can afford Angus Gunn. Same club, of course, at Norwich. Not really getting a look in under David Wagner. Is that a sort of... Could he fill Alan McGregor's gloves? It is big gloves to fill.
It is big gloves to fill. Well, I'm going to throw it back to you, Derek, because I know you've been working on something to kind of commemorate McGregor's 500th appearance, which I believe was speaking to some people who worked with him earlier in his career. Obviously, was it 2 loan spells he had, or 3 loan spells he had. Be good to kind of, before that piece comes out, which I think is Sunday or Monday or sometime over the weekend, just get a sense of what he was like as a young player and what type of player he was to kind of set himself up playing 500 times for Rangers, presuming he is in the starting 11 tomorrow. Yeah,
that's a piece that's coming out on the website tomorrow. Fascinating to speak to some of his old bosses before Rangers, of course, even the likes of when he was starting out at Hutchison Vale, which was a conveyor belt of talent, really. But speaking to the people that are involved with the club there, Alan McGregor really was the cream of the crop, the standout. So it was really interesting to get their take on Alan and how he's went on. He's a Rangers, bona fide Rangers legend. 500 appearances is magnificent. In terms, I had Chris Jack on the other day, Joshua, and I was asking him what was his greatest save over his career, because he wrote a piece on the website, which he found incredibly difficult because there's so many top saves. Is there one that sticks out for you?
All the classics of his first spell, I guess, would probably Bremen probably up, but then I think the Prague save a year and a half ago was, because of his age, the age he was at, stands out even more. And I know Rangers didn't go through in that tie, but it was one of those. You kind of, that feeling when you see the ball and it's about to go into the net, and then it's as if time stopped and the goalkeeper's had a minute to kind of pick the ball up and prevent it from doing so. That was an incredible save, as was his save in the, maybe not quite to that level, but a save from Griffiths in the 1-0 Old Firm win at was it the very start of 2021? That was such a significant win for Rangers in the tie. I know they were still very far ahead, but I remember going into that game, because they hadn't won the league title, the kind of scar tissue of of losing a winning position was very much alive. It wasn't long after that Motherwell game at home where it took so long for Rangers to win that 3-1 game, and I think it was such a pivotal kind of month. Obviously, then it was the international break or the winter break after that game as well. That was a huge save, even if it maybe wasn't quite as good as some others. But I think that season, that 2020-21 season, will always stand out to me because of how consistent it was over the course of the season. Obviously, Rangers had a record-breaking defensive number of goals conceded. I think was it 13 in the entire league campaign, or something like that. And if you look at McGregor's goal saved above average stats, a good 6 or 7 were owing to his performance. So, presuming he does get that 500th appearance tomorrow, will be very, very well deserved. And lots that you could pick out, but those are the few that kind of stand out to me.
Yes. There's plenty of them. Just touching on possible replacements. Sharpie 55 says, get Fodringham back to Rangers. He could well be playing in the Premier League next season, Wes Fodringham, which would be absolutely tremendous for him. Of course, when McGregor came up the road, he was demoted to number 2 pretty much. I liked Big Wes, I've got to say. Joshua, I know he had his faults. Long-range efforts seem to be his kryptonite, but he's done remarkably well at Sheffield United, who are going great guns. With Paul Heckingbottom, the former Hibs manager, and Stuart McCall as part of the backroom staff. So plenty of Rangers involvement there, and it'd be great to see him in the top flight in England, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, it would. I agree. It kind of just petered out from when McGregor came back up the road. Fodringham as well, obviously was asked to play kind of that risky possession style of inviting pressure, which I think gave a lot of people an Ibrox raised the blood pressure at times. But now, good to see him doing so well. And obviously they're in the semi-finals now. Is it the semi-finals of the
semi-finals? Yeah, they'll play Manchester City. Yeah, so a tough task, but it's a great achievement even getting there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'd be surprised if he comes back up the roads. But of course, as we've said, I think repeatedly, a goalkeeper will be right up on the top of the summer priority list. It has to be. And I think that's absolutely the right decision. McGregor, I think most people would say he's not hit the heights of previous seasons, this season or last. I'd be very surprised if there isn't kind of change in that area in the summer.
Yeah, and just finishing up, World's Greatest DJ says a few comments yesterday about Jack Butland. Is he a realistic option, lads? Of course, he's at Crystal Palace on loan, I'm sure. Man United, which was an interesting one for the remainder of the season as a sub goalkeeper. I remember watching him when he was at Stoke City. He was outstanding. I covered Stoke quite a fair bit, and then he had a real crisis of confidence. He just really struggled. He had a few howlers, but that was a few years ago. I think Jack Butland, I think he'd be a dependable, safe pair of hands. He's 30 years of age, which for a goalkeeper is still relatively young, you would say, especially when Alan McGregor's 41 years of age. Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'm not so sure if you've seen much of him, Joshua. I haven't recently, I've got to say. He hasn't really been playing, to be honest. But he comes with a decent pedigree.
It's also difficult to judge keepers because the people will look solely at save percentage, but then you're just looking at volume, and that's why I think numbers like goals saved above average, kind of taken into context, the overall ability of a goalkeeper to be in the reds or the green is important. You've also got to consider now how important goalies are on the ball to provide a kind of an extra player in possession. If you look at Arsenal, who are top of the league, you look at the type of passes that Aaron Ramsdale's playing, not only long balls but kind of passes into midfield alongside the ones we know, Alisson and Ederson, really important as well. So I don't know. I don't know if you want to go for someone younger than that, Derek. I think Rangers' model has to be buy young and sell on. And I know what you're saying. A goalkeeper at 30 isn't exactly old, considering how long they can play on for. But Butland's at Man United is a kind of a backup. Obviously, he'll help them with their homegrown quota. I'd imagine he'll be on quite significant sums of money as well. So, I don't know when his contract is up.
I think it's in the summer, I'm sure. And listen, if Jack Butland comes up the road, he will be wanting to play. There is no doubt about it. But it's an interesting one. I thought he was older than 30, to be honest, but he has been around a long time. But as Joshua says, it is a position that Rangers do need to strengthen in the summer. There has been some claims that they might need 2 goalkeepers depending on what's happening with John McLaughlin, and Robbie McCrory is there as well. I know that some folk would like to see McCrory given the opportunity between now and the end of the season to see if he has the tools to replace Alan McGregor. It will be interesting to see what happens going forward. But listen, folks, that'll do us there. As I mentioned, we'll have the press conference early this afternoon. We'll hear from Michael Beale, and you'll get all that reaction on the website and on our social media channels. So keep your eyes peeled for that as we look ahead to the game tomorrow against Dundee United. Okay, big thanks to Joshua and to everyone for interacting with the show. We'll be back again on Monday, hopefully reflecting on another Rangers victory. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. Bye for now.